We are going live on Facebook and soon to be in LinkedIn for our podcast. And here we have with us the most popular Chris Galli, who's really one of the top mortgage broker in the country. And at the same time, you have here your little student here, Rich Sheikh.
Yeah.
We we both know a little bit about the real estate, and we thought we share our knowledge. That's our sole purpose, and we hope that people will chime in and they will enjoy this free education. Our sole purpose, is to kind of share and learn from each other. So basically, we have been talking about high yield commercial real estate opportunities. Those opportunities which are not very common and they're not commonly known, but they are futuristic opportunities that can be managed better and easier with AI, and they are easy to acquire, financially speaking, and then of course they produce higher yield. But before we talk about those opportunities, we thought that why don't we just talk about what are the measurement tools? How do we really, what is the criteria to figure out what is a good opportunity and what is better and best? And then, of course, what's ugly and bad. So we have our own funnel, which is very easy. So for some people, this may be too simple, but for many who want to invest in real estate and they do not have that measuring stick, we are going to talk about those criteria briefly, and then we're going to explain with the examples that how, because if you just read in a book, you don't really understand and you don't grasp what does it really mean, in day-to-day basis. So our purpose here is to basically, share with you whatever we know. So I have my criteria, Chris, and you have your
Yep.
criteria.
I
So
do.
if you are looking at the deal, financially speaking, what is your number one criteria to figure out whether it's a good deal and you want to get in, or whether that is a bad deal?
Well, it all depends on what I'm doing. It depends on if I'm selling the property or if I'm keeping it, right? Because I want to make sure what if I'm going to keep it, if I'm renting it, what my multiplier is going to be. But really, what I'm looking for is what my cap rate's going to be, right? So I'm trying to measure the property's performance, right? So what that means is a higher cap rate is going to equal more income. So I'm always looking at for a minor example, say you have $100,000 property making $10,000 a year, right? That would be a 10% cap rate, right? So I'd probably be looking pretty good. That means like we were made whole after 10 years. Anything over eight is where the lowest point that I'll even look at, but 10 is probably where I'd like to look at or where I'd like to be in most of mine. And that's one way, and I don't want to keep going. So I want you to add some value into this as well, as I'll keep going right down on to IRR and, explain and break that down. But the cap rate is basically what we're going to do is we're going to measure the property's performance. Right. And we're going to see what that net income is after all the different expenses that are going to come out of that property, whether it be a mortgage, taxes, insurance, maintenance. You have all different things. I know my property's in the Northeast. I got to think about things like snow removal in the winter. That's a real cost, and keeping up the yard or whatever it is that I'm paying out of it. I need to factor in all those expenses, and then I got to look at what the performance base is and what the income's going to be.
Okay, so Chris, I'm gonna try to decipher it because I'm a little slow. This is
Okay,
really your
please.
forte, and I'm trying to just understand as a student. So the way I understood it, in my humble opinion, what you're trying to say is the very first thing you are going to say, you meant to say is that you want to see whether that is a positive cash flow or negative cash flow. Of course, you
Correct.
went with the 10% cap rate. You're not going to have a 10% if you're not going to have a positive cash flow. So the very
Correct.
first thing you have to see is it positive cash flow and negative cash flow. And positive cash flow really means that whatever money you are getting in rent, okay, or
Right.
operation, whatever money you are getting in, what is your inflow, your outflow with all the expenses, even including mortgage,
Mm.
cannot be more than your inflow. So let's say
Correct.
if you're getting $10,000 a month, and you have to pay, if you have to pay mortgage, you have to pay maintenance, you have to pay, all kind of snow removal, taxes, insurances, maintenance. With all the expenses, you are going to figure out what are they going to be monthly basis, because some of those expenses are quarterly, some are annual, some are unplanned, like
Right.
maintenance. But you got to figure out that if you're getting $10,000 a month rent, what is your expense? So first of all, it cannot have $11,000 a month, expense. If it does, no matter what you have, that is the first red flag,
Right.
because you do not want to buy a property, or you do not want to participate in a property that will put more hole in your pocket. The
Correct.
idea is that it bring cash to you, is cash flows. So when people use the term does it cash flow, what it mean is, does it positive cash flow? When people say does it cash flow, really mean positive cash flow. I know Chris is not even looking at the basic stuff, because he's already out there talking about turning the whole property in 10 years. So a common homeowner get 30-year mortgage, because the idea is that in 30 years you pay off the property. Now,
Correct.
when our in real estate investors like us, they are buying a property, they want to see that they can turn their money in 10 years. You know.
Correct.
So if they are buying $100,000 property, like the example Chris gave, and if it has a 10% cap rate, it should really turn that. It means you turn your money in 10 years. If you do less than 10 year, great. If some people do 5 year, and some people don't even do 30 year, trust me. So two tests here. Number one, does it do a positive cash flow, or does it do, a negative cash flow? So that's your first red flag. And the
Hmm.
second one is, what is your cap rate? Now let's talk about the cap rate a little bit more. Chris gave example that if it's $100,000 property and is bringing $10,000 a month, I mean, sorry, $10,000 a year. Sorry,
That's
$10,000 a year. That means it's a 10% cap rate. So the way
yeah.
he's doing it is that he's taking really the NOI, which is the net operating income. So go ahead, Chris, explain people what is net operating income, because we're going to talk about gross rent multiplier secondly. First, let's talk
Yeah.
about the cap rate. So go ahead and explain, tell people what is NOI.
So the NOI, so what we're looking again is you're still measuring the property's performance on it, but you want to make sure that you're going to get back some money each and every year, right? So it measures the high cap rate equals more income. So you're still doing the same exact thing. Now, are we talking about the cap rate again?
Yes, we are talking about cap rate, but I just
Okay.
want to explain people the NOI, because many people confuse NOI with the rent they are getting in. So
Correct.
really what I'm trying to get at, let me make it simple, that net operating income and the rent you're getting in, there is a little difference. This is not
Correct.
gross income, this is net income. So the
The net,
difference here is that you subtract your,
the number, the high number in
yes,
minus your expenses.
exactly,
So
minus your expenses, but not the mortgage.
correct. So
Not
so
the
it'd be
mortgage in this case. Yes.
yeah. So if you look at that, if you look at it where it's bringing in, let's say that you have a mortgage of $2,000. Say all your expenses come up to $8,000, but you're getting rent of 3,300 a month per. Say you have 3 units and you're getting the 10,000, but all your expenses are 8 grand. Well, you're bringing in 2,000 net positive a month. That's your net operating income that you're going to put into the kitty per se, and that's necessarily not even your net, because you never know when that AC unit goes, in the middle of the year, right? Or it's, the water tank goes.
Yeah.
So, even though you're making this number every single month based on what your net operating income is, there's still some other expenses that may be coming out of that may not be right at that time. It could be in the middle of the year, could be, depending on the property that you own. You could have quarterly fees You're gonna have water, sewer, and that all depends on if you're taking on that expense or if you're passing it through to the person that's renting. So these are all things that you got to look at. It's like, okay, what is my topic? All the expenses, if I wasn't handing them out, what are they going to be? And then you decide what you're going to pass forward to the tenant, right, or the person renting. And then at the end of the day, you look at everything that you brought in minus everything that you go out. And it's really important to keep a watch on that all year round. Don't,
Yeah.
don't
So
just spend the money as if it's an income.
right. So I just wanna, because we are trying to explain to people who may be new into this whole thing, that you are not taking rent as a gross income and dividing that into the value. You are
Correct.
taking the net operating income. The difference between gross income and net operating income is that you gotta subtract the operation cost. So you
Correct.
take, let's say your rent per year is $10,000, but your operation cost is $2,000 a year. I'm only giving an example.
Correct.
You are only taking operation costs and thinking you have you have paid off the whole property, and let's say you're not paying anything for mortgage. Whatever you pay for mortgage, that doesn't go in operation. That is a
Right.
financial mechanism, and that will confuse you. So keep the mortgage separate. Let's say if the property is at $200,000, and let's suppose you paid that $200,000 complete, okay, and now you are getting in, let's say, $10,000 a month, $10,000 a year rent. Now you spend $2,000 in taxes, in insurance, in maintenance. Now the rest is $8,000. That $8,000 is your net operating income. Okay.
Right.
Now that you divide that into your value or purchase price. I like
Right.
to do value, not the purchase price, because I
Okay.
may have bought the property for 180, but I don't see that I could sell that property for 200. Then that is a 200,000, not 180,000, because you have actually 200,000. So you take that 200,000, but you take $8,000 a year. You divide 8,000 over 200. That is your cap rate now.
Okay.
Now, that is your cap rate that many people confuse this whole thing. All you do is you take the total income and you subtract the operation expenses. Now, what is left over divided by the value is the cap rate.
Is a
Okay.
cap rate.
Because many people calculate the cap rate wrong. So I wanted to clarify.
And
Now,
where do you like to see your cap rate, Rich? So for
yeah,
people that are
I
watching.
honestly think that first of all, the cap rate needs to be calculated right. That, for example, the example Chris gave was a very, very raw, crude example that he took total rent and he took total value and he divided without
Correct.
taking out the expenses.
Correct.
So I take out the expenses because the reality is this is where my management efficiency comes in. Because a person A may be getting in net income of 8,000 and person B may be getting a net income of 5,000, depending on how good you are in your operation management, you know.
Right.
So that's the reason cap rate is also subset of your management efficiency. So I think if I get 10% cap rate, I will be very happy. Very happy.
Yeah.
I don't think that I get cap rate of more than 5 to 8%. But
Okay.
that also depends, Chris, that also depends on where you are in the whole United States. And in the
Correct.
United States, even where you are in the city versus suburbs. My experience is that in suburbs, you get much less cap rate than in the cities.
But you have the security of it's a safe and you're not
Correct.
going to lose.
Correct.
It's going to be
Correct.
steady Eddie all the way through.
Correct. And the third, so we got the first one as a positive and negative cash flow. Second one as a net operating income and and cap rate. And then the third indicator is gross rent multiplier. Because some people may not understand the operation cost. They may not
Correct.
have experience of operation cost. But the way they need to look at is that what is my gross rent multiplier? That I
Yeah.
am getting I'm getting a $10,000 a year rent, for example. So if it is a $100,000 property, I see I'm getting $10,000 and I'm not thinking that what will be the value of that 10,000 second year, third year, fourth year,
Sure.
forgetting about that. So you say that, okay, I'm getting, $800 a month and $10,000 a year, and if the property is $100,000 value, my gross rent multiplier is 10 times.
10
Okay.
times. Yeah.
If I am getting a 10 times gross rent multiplier, it means that I'm turning my property in 10 years, my whole investment. Now,
Correct.
in this case, in this example, I did not think of future value. But reality is the future value is different than the present value. And
Correct.
that's where the IRR comes into play.
Correct.
Internal rate of revenue. But honestly, if we go in there, it's going to get too difficult. So I just would say that we don't go too much into it, because that you need a calculator to calculate.
Correct. And then you start, but those are definitely the steps that you want to take to get to the end game.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of baby stepping in. If you can get the right cap rate originally, right, you get the right gross rent multiplier down in your mind, you got a good foundation to start looking at things and start kind of figuring out if it's worth what the price is, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's really you got to really take these steps. And now with the tools that are out there,
Yeah.
I mean, you can teach yourself all this stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
watching us, I mean, there's so much information out there.
Yeah.
So it's just really just getting in and diving in and finding yourself, even if you start even slow and you do it as a like a little REIT with a group of people. So you kind of limit your liability, if you will. So you maybe got 2 or 3 partners and you just do one project and you kind of learn together. That's just a good way to possibly start if you don't have a big bankroll behind you. A lot of guys are starting small, right? But
So
taking these
I
steps.
must give you this case study. I have a friend. I have a lot of doctor friends. So I have one doctor friend, and they actually call me for advice, because I'm a free advice, so they don't care.
Yeah.
So one friend of mine called me up, and he said, "Look, I have a property which I'm very happy of. That property, a friend of mine was selling. I told him, don't sell out. I will buy it from you." And he bought the property for, I think, $500,000. And he said that he has to deploy. I told him to deploy no more than 20%. Okay. But he said if he deploy 20%, he cannot get positive cash flow. He said he has to do minimum 50% deployment to get the positive cash flow. When he explained to me all that, I told him, sorry, I don't think this is a good investment. But then he told me, he said, look, I'm a doctor. I'm not a person like you. It's a good property at a good location. It's in a suburb. It's not in a city. And if I put this money in the bank, I don't even get
Nothing.
3%. Okay?
Yeah.
There are good CDs where you can get probably 4 or 5%. But to be honest, that's not wealth creation. That's just a very, very passive way of looking at things. So he basically told me he never seen a property where he can put less than 50% and get a positive cash flow. Forget about the rest. He's not even passing the first test. So, and I'm hoping that our viewers already understand what positive cash flow is. And if they did not, they can go back and watch our podcast again.
Yeah.
So you must get a positive cash flow. And when I say positive cash flow, now what it means is that I don't believe you should put more than 20% and get a positive cash flow. Do you agree, Chris?
No, 20's the minimum. I mean, I put a lot less than that down in
Right.
a lot
You
of
say maximum. In your term, you are trying to say maximum.
that's a maximum is 20 for me.
So you would put 10%. I know you are a good finance guy. You would probably put 5 and 10%.
Correct. Yeah, if I can.
Okay. If you put 10%, do you get the properties which can do positive cash flow?
In some cases it's very minimal, but there's still positive cash flow.
That's it. That's the key word you said. I don't care how minimal it is. No, this is really the very important word you said. That you want to put minimum from your pocket.
Correct.
And you want to stay positive cash flow. My rule of thumb is 20-80 is a good formula. If you put 20% and you are not a big and not very wise, smart person, not a mortgage broker, everybody's not Galli Lama. Everybody. I'm probably not as good as you are when it comes to money.
No.
But 10%, if you can put 10%, I know you probably putting 5 or 2 or even 3 and nothing. I know some other builders, I know some people who put nothing from their pocket
Yeah.
and they still double their money in 10 to 20 years.
That's it.
And the way they do it is that this would be another episode, but we'll just put a teaser out there.
Yeah.
They have a good network of people. They will put the money in there, and all these guys doing are finding deals and using their skills to turn them around. Now, when they turn them around, they don't even hold and rent it. They turn them around, they double their money, and then they are keeping 50% to themselves and 50% to those people. Now, everybody got something very good out of this thing.
Yeah. Everyone won.
Somebody put skills and the other person put money.
Yeah.
So there are all kind of deals out there, But the idea is that you remember number one, OPM, other people money.
Money. Yes.
Number two, positive cash flow. Because when you use OPM, other people money, you're putting minimum, maybe 5%, 10%, 20%, and you can get money either from people like mortgage brokers, smart people like, Chris, who can get you different kind of financing, not just typical bank financing, but many other.
Yeah.
But you have to do all the math. I'm not advising you to get high interest rate money. And, I was actually watching today Tucker Carlson. You watch Tucker?
Okay. I do catch some of his stuff. Yes.
I'm telling you, he's moving and shaking nowadays. I didn't like him, but now I started liking him. He's really moving and shaking. And I just heard him saying in one of the talks that if you are buying money for high interest rate, Tucker Carlson is a religious person too, even though he's a podcaster.
You're a slave to the lender, man.
He said, no, but he said, then you are doing something bad by the eyes of God, and you're going to see God. So I tend to agree. So I would say, so the first test is OPM, other people money, and that would be bank. The second test is positive cash flow. The third test is, your cap rate. And that we said, if you can get cap rate 5 to 10%, in my opinion, you're doing good. Mm-hmm. But you gotta calculate the cap rate by subtracting your operation cost from the gross income. Then the fourth one is gross rent multiplier. Now, if you can turn your whole investment within 10 years, if you are holding and renting, then that's great. And then there is another test, which is IRR, but I'm honestly not going to go in there because that get too technical.
We could spend a whole podcast just on that. And I think it's an important one we should do maybe. Maybe we should do something like that with like a slide deck, Rich, where we can share our screen and walk through something with people.
But honestly, for that, Chris, we need to have real example. Okay. Because just by the theory of it, people are going to get confused. So
correct.
We have to do another total podcast on IRR. That is a good one, but I think these are your basic tests. Okay. Correct. And then the other thing which I am missing, I think, Chris, and that is that your other variables of building your portfolio. Because if you take less money of yourself and put other people's money, then you can build. This is what's called wealth creation.
Yes.
So go ahead and put the last few seconds, and then I think this has already gotten a little too long.
Yeah, I'm good with us wrapping this up because we don't want to drown people here. And I think to wrap it all up, we'll just say, if you're looking in the beginning stages of looking to buy, whether it's real estate property, commercial property, you're going to look at those three things. You're going to look at your cap rate. That's the first thing that you're going to look at. You're going to make sure that what you have coming in is more than what you have going out based on all your expenses. Very clean.
So and then I would say that would be a cash flow first then.
Yep. So there's your cash flow. And then you're definitely going to want to look at your gross rent multiplier if you're actually plan on renting it out to see how long it's going to take you to actually pay that property off based on the income that you have coming in on it. Just at a high level, right? And then at some point you're going to learn about your return on your investment, your IRR, your internal rate of return on your investment itself. So We won't get into that, but those are your three things. So if in your study time, look up your gross rent multiplier and look up your cap rate and just study and take some scenarios of properties that you're looking at and just start doing the math out
Okay.
and just get good at practicing that over and over and over.
Okay, and if you have some examples or questions, go ahead and put comments in our on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. We're going to be posting this on YouTube too. We have this live on Facebook and LinkedIn, but we don't have live on YouTube yet. Soon we'll get there. But anyway, our whole purpose is to share this knowledge with you and get all the fluff out. There's a lot of fluff out. There's
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of discussion. How do you really get rich? And there will be another episode where we'll explain how by thinking of getting rich and making mistakes, people drown themselves. I was
Correct.
just studying somebody very heartful, very, very heartbreaking, story of that guy, Rick Kamal, who was actually a CTO of Harvard Business School from 2015 to 2019, who unfortunately killed himself and his family because he was an amazingly smart person, BU and MIT grad, but he had very lavish style and he was borrowing money at a very high rate and he couldn't
Mm,
return and he couldn't save anything. Anyway, that would be for another day. And I don't want to leave you on a negative note, but honestly, every negative thing has something very important to learn. And learn
correct.
is that you educate yourself. You want to get rich, you want to create wealth, but you want to have a happy, healthy wealth.
That's
With
it.
that note, go ahead, Chris.
Nope, I said that's it. You nailed it.
With that note, I will say have happy, healthy wealth creation and a happy, healthy life. We'll see you soon.